Alexander has founded more than 20 cities that will bear his name for centuries. He has beaten seemingly invincible armies. He has crossed deserts, mountains, and empires. He has burned Persepolis, the heart of Persia. Yet on India's frontier, something changes. For the first time, the conqueror who had bent the known world can no longer move forward. Darius does not stop him. Porus elephants do not stop him. The walls of his city do not stop him. His own men stop him. But why does antiquity's most victorious army decide that enough is enough, right there at the world's end? And how will Alexander, returning to Babylon, meet his death? After the campaigns in Bactria and Sogdiana, Alexander has pushed his army beyond the historic heart of the Persian Empire. He has hunted Bessus, fought local revolts, taken fortresses considered impregnable, and married Roxanne, binding himself to Central Asia's elites. But for him, it is not enough. To the east lies another frontier. Beyond the Hindu Kush mountains, the world of India begins. In 327 BC, Alexander turns southeast. After nearly 8 years of campaigns and roughly 11,200 miles of marching, his army is no longer the one that left Macedonia. It is around 40,000 strong, but by now it is a mosaic of Macedonians, Greeks, Persians, and Eastern troops. Behind the Macedonian army stretches not a single supply line, but a fragile system made up of conquered cities, local tributes, rivers, and scattered garrisons spread across thousands of miles. Many soldiers no longer feel like expeditionaries. They now feel like exiles. The army crosses the harsh Hindu Kush passes at elevations of 11,500 to 13,000 feet, then descends towards the Kabul Valley at the wider Indus system. This is no longer the war of great Persian capitals. Here, the terrain changes again. Mountains, gorges, rivers, fortified cities, and peoples used to fighting in difficult country. The advance is not a simple march. Along the way, Alexander has to switch between force and diplomacy. Some communities submit, others resist. Among the most celebrated episodes is the capture of Aornos, a famous mountain fortress that, according to tradition, even Heracles had failed to conquer. For the Macedonian king, conquering it means measuring himself against myth once again. Where ancient heroes had failed, he wants to succeed. Then comes Taxila. The local king, Ambi, opens his gates and sides with Alexander against the stronger neighboring ruler, Porus, who controls the broad territory beyond the Hydaspes. It is a decisive political move. Alexander understands that India cannot be taken by phalanxes alone. He must also exploit local rivalries, turning one king against another. Ahead lie new rivers, new plains, and an enemy unlike any he has faced before. In 326 BC, Alexander reaches the Hydaspes, today's Jhelum. On the other side of the river waits Porus, the king who controls the territory between the Hydaspes and the Aesones, today's Chenab. Here, the problem is not the enemy, it is the river. The Hydaspes is wide, rain-swollen, and hard to cross. Porus knows this and deploys his army on the opposite bank, ready to strike at the Macedonians at their most vulnerable moment. As they enter the water, with horses, men, and weapons exposed to the current. Alexander cannot attack straight across. It would be suicide. So he does what he does best. He misleads the enemy. For days, he moves units along the bank, makes noise, shifts cavalry, and simulates crossing attempts. Porus has to watch every point of the river, never knowing where the real attack will come. Then, during a night of rain and thunder, Alexander moves upstream with a selected force. He crosses the river far from the main point, using islands, darkness, and confusion. By the time Porus realizes what is happening, the Macedonians are already on his bank. Porus sends his son forward with cavalry and chariots to block the Macedonian bridgehead. But the attempt fails, and Alexander manages to secure the crossing. At that point, one of the hardest battles of his conquest begins. The Macedonian army numbers about 40,000 men. Porus can field about 30,000, including infantry and cavalry, plus chariots, and above all, war elephants. For the Macedonians, it is a shock. Elephants are not just huge animals. They are psychological weapons on the battlefield. They frighten horses, break formations, crush men, and create chaos in the phalanx. For the first time, the army that had bent Persia faces a force it cannot immediately control. The battle becomes ferocious. Alexander uses the cavalry to strike the flanks, while the Macedonian infantry advances with difficulty against the elephants and the Indian line. Little by little, Porus' army is squeezed. The elephants, wounded and maddened, end up creating disorder among their own men as well. Indian losses are heavy. Ancient sources give very high figures, such as 20,000 Indian infantrymen and 3,000 cavalrymen killed, with many elephants captured. In the end, Porus is defeated, but not humiliated. When Alexander asks how he wishes to be treated, Porus answers firmly, as a king. Alexander respects him, reinstates him, and entrusts him with even wider territories. It is a political choice. To govern northwestern India, he needs a strong local sovereign, not a devastated land. But the victory also leaves a personal wound. Soon after the battle, Bucephalus, the horse that had accompanied Alexander since adolescence, dies. In his honor, the king founds a city, Bucephala. Nearby, he also founds Nicaea to celebrate the victory. On the Hydaspes, Alexander has won again, but for the first time, the price of conquest begins to seem too high.
Did you know that most people who watch our documentaries aren't subscribed yet? If you enjoy animated maps and history, join our community. Leave a like and subscribe so you never miss the next episodes.
After the Hydaspes, Alexander wants more. Victory over Porus is not enough. Ahead of him still lies a march farther into India. New rivers, new plains, new kingdoms. Beyond the Hyphasis, today's bays, the road opens towards the Ganges and toward powers the Macedonians know only through stories, exaggerated numbers, and unsettling rumors from afar. But the army has reached its limit. For 8 years, it has fought with almost no real pause. It has crossed Asia Minor, Syria, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Persia, Bactria, Sogdiana, and now India. It has overcome deserts, mountains, great rivers, brutal sieges, local revolts, war elephants, and monsoons. For Alexander, every new frontier is a promise. For his men, it has become a nightmare beginning all over again. The breaking point comes in the Hyphasis. There, the army refuses to continue. It is not panic. It is not cowardice. It is years of accumulated fatigue. Ahead of them is not a single battle, but another world to cross. More rivers, more armies, elephants, rain, and distance from Macedonia. Honos, one of the most respected commanders, speaks for the soldiers. He tells Alexander what no one wants to say. The men have followed him to the ends of the world, but now they want to go home. Soon after, Honos dies. Alexander reacts badly. He shuts himself in his tent for 2 days, waiting for the army to change his mind. But the camp stays still. The soldiers' silence is stronger than any order. At last, Alexander yields. On the Hyphasis, he raises 12 altars as tall as towers. They mark no victory, only the farthest limit of the march. It is not a military defeat. No king has beaten him in battle, but it is the first true political defeat of his life. For the first time, Alexander must accept that his desire is no longer enough. After the Hyphasis, Alexander accepts that he has to turn back, but he does not choose a simple return west. He decides to descend along the great Indus system, turning the retreat into a new campaign. He has a great fleet built, organizes transport along the rivers, and gives Nearchus a decisive role. He will later lead the naval expedition along the coast. The route follows the rivers, from the Hydaspes toward the Essenes, then along the Indus to the Delta and the ocean. The Indus fleet gathered there numbers hundreds of vessels, perhaps up to 800. Not only warships, but riverboats, horse transports, and supply ships. One contingent, about 17,000 to 20,000 men, is entrusted to Nearchus for the voyage toward the Persian Gulf. But even the return is full of resistance. Local peoples do not always submit easily, and Alexander keeps fighting as he always has, in full view of everyone. The most dramatic episode comes during the campaign against the Malians. In an assault on a fortified city, Alexander is among the first over the walls. For a moment, he is almost isolated, surrounded by enemies. He is struck by an arrow that pierces his armor and enters his chest. His men manage to save him, but panic spreads through the army. For several hours, many believe the king is dead. It is an echo of the Granicus. There, too, Alexander risked his life on the front line, but now that courage begins to seem increasingly dangerous, almost self-destructive. Finally, he reaches the ocean. For Alexander, it is an immense symbolic moment. After years of campaigns, he has brought Macedonians to what, for them, is the world's edge. Then comes the real return. The army is divided. Nearchus sails along the coast. Craterus leads some troops by a safer inland route. Alexander chooses instead the route through Gedrosia itself, the Macron Desert. There is calculation behind the choice. Alexander wants to surpass the legendary feats of Cyrus and Semiramis, and perhaps maintain contact with the fleet. But the result is a disaster. The march towards Pura lasts about 60 days. Heat, thirst, sand, dead animals, uncertain guides, and scattered columns turn the return into a human and logistical catastrophe. The sources do not agree on numbers, but according to some estimates, tens of thousands of people and animals may have died. Soldiers, servants, merchants, and pack animals. In 324 BC, Alexander returns to Susa. He is no longer just the conqueror who crossed Asia. he wants to turn conquest into a stable system. Here, he stages his most ambitious project, joining the Macedonian and Persian elites. The weddings at Susa are not a private celebration. They are a political act. Alexander marries Stateria, daughter of Darius, and perhaps also Peristatus, daughter of Artaxerxes III. Hephaestion, the king's closest companion, marries Drypetus, another daughter of Darius. In this way, their future descendants would be tied to the same Persian royal line. About 80 companions marry Persian and Median women. Thousands of soldiers who had already married Asian wives receive gifts. These are not romantic unions between peoples. They are imperial policy imposed from above, and Macedonians resent it. Soon after, at Opis, tension explodes. Alexander wants to discharge older or wounded veterans and integrate more Asian troops into his army. For him, it is an imperial necessity. For the Macedonians, it is humiliation. They now feel replaced. They are no longer the sole heart of the conquest. The fracture that once involved individual officers now involves the whole army. After the clash, Alexander manages to mend it only partly. Reconciliation happens, but trust never truly returns to what it was before. Then comes the most personal blow. At Ecbatana, in 324 BC, Hephaestion falls ill during celebrations and dies after days of fever. Their bond was so close that it was often compared to Achilles and Patroclus. According to some, it may also have been romantic. He was the figure closest to Alexander, the companion who had accompanied him through the transformation from Macedonian king to sovereign of Asia. His death overwhelms Alexander. The mourning is immense, almost beyond control. In Hephaestion, he does not only lose a trusted man, he loses the person who, more than anyone, had shared his idea of greatness. Alexander prepares almost royal honors for him. Tradition speaks of an immense funeral pyre at a cost of 10,000 talents. In 323 BC, Alexander returns to Babylon. He is not a tired king preparing to stop. He is already planning new campaigns, probably toward Arabia, and new projects in the Persian Gulf. Then he falls ill after a banquet. The cause remains debated. Malaria, typhoid fever, infection, poisoning, or the accumulated weight of years of wounds, stress, and alcohol. There is no certainty. In June 323 BC, Alexander dies in Babylon. Tradition says soldiers file one by one past the dying king, but no one receives a clear succession. There is a fragile half-brother, Aridaeus. There is an unborn child by Roxanne, and there are enormously powerful generals unwilling to remain in the shadows. The empire almost immediately begins breaking apart among the Diadochi. Alexander's body is diverted toward Egypt by Ptolemy. Alexandria becomes the center of his memory. In the Roman age, his tomb is still famous. Then it disappears. Alexander leaves no stable empire, but he leaves a new world. His tomb is lost. His world is not. If you enjoy epic history documentaries with animated maps, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos.